everybody on our second of 4 walks, talking and exploring Old Oak and Park Royal. And the walk is is Motorbikes and Guinness. Motorbikes, we should have added vintage cars, as you can see, but who was to know? At this cult place, Ace Café. Then we will go towards through Park Royal, and we'll see the big space which once was occupied by the famous brewery Guinness. And then we'll cross the Western Avenue, past the station. Which one? Park Royal station, of course. And then we'll enter another industrial estate, plenty of them here, and we will finish at the end of Duke's Road at a restaurant.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you everybody for coming along today. I certainly recognise one or two of you from over the years have been here, but as Joanna's just I think covered really, this cafe opened originally in 1938, and at that time the road in front of us, immediately in front of the cafe here, was the North Circular Road, a brand new, specially laid out road as part of the then new arterial road network, broadly the equivalent of the motorway network today. Post World War II, yes, beg your pardon, teenage baby boom of the era. That baby boom, both sides of the Atlantic, had won the war, and they had a bit of money. In America, they had a bit more money than they had here. But the kids went out and bought the fastest things they could afford. In America, that was a car. Over here, they couldn't afford cars, they bought motorbikes. And on both sides of the Atlantic is then, what should we do, where should we go? Fast bits of road, no speed limits, brand new cafe, neon signage, all this modernity here. Just as in America, no speed limits, kids get together, I'm faster than you, I've done my bike better than you, I've done my car better than you, it's racing, etc. And carnage follows. And again, think back, I can't remember the two important dates, as it were, or relevant dates, 63 and 65, and it is that up until one of those two dates, the only speed limit in England was 30 miles an hour in town. If you were outside of the town, and certainly if you were on an arterial road, there was no speed limit. Secondly, at age 17, you could go to a post office, you could fill in a form, and with that form you then had a provisional licence. Provided you displayed an L plate, you will be familiar with L plates, you could ride any bike you liked. You didn't do any training, 1000cc, etc, etc. And that combination, no speed limits, no training, and being young, it's utter carnage on the roads. And that only really got addressed post 62, 63, 64, 65, and brought the casualty figures down.
During the rationalisation of the aircraft industry, Bristol Aeroplane divested Bristol Cars, so it became its own company. And they had works in Bristol, but they didn't have bodyworks. So Bristol's in the 1960s would assemble the chassis, the wheels and the engine, and they would ship them up to London. The two major bodyworks that they used were Park Ward, who I believe are owned by Rolls-Royce in Park Royal, and the Park Royal Coachworks, which was London Transport.
Because this was all agricultural then, right? Apart from the canal, which is over there, which was built 1801, and it went over the River Brent.
river.
Now the River Brent was much wider, lots of floods and everything, and it's been channeled. It was channeled like this, concreted like this in the 1920s, 30s when they built the North Circular. But my only question about the history of this is why is this such a jungle of railways and roads in this particular area of northwest London? And a lot to do with how London developed and how industry developed in this country. Go back 200, 250 years, the main route out of London was going west towards Oxford and Bristol, was the Uxbridge Road. Right? But then with the development of industry in the northwest and in Birmingham, Midlands, they wanted connections with that part of the country to bring the raw materials here, to go elsewhere in the world and to take new stuff back there. So they needed to build a canal first, because the canal came from Birmingham to here, to London, to Brentford, and then pretty soon after they started building the railways. That bridge was built by Robert Louis Stevenson, one of the first railway engineers.
Robert Stevenson.
Robert Stevenson. Oh, Robert Louis Stevenson, right.
Wasn't the author.
Robert Stevenson, the engineer.
It's so
Right.
easy to
Okay.
yeah, when you speak.
And is a heritage thing. There are 7 arches, 7 bridges there, mainly railways, but some roads as well. Right? So there was needed a connections with the northwest. So that brought development to this area. Along with the railways came housing, came industry, came so much, and then with the cars, with the motor transport increasing and being so that the Uxbridge Road was really blocked and there was no connection between the places that were here, they built more roads, and they built the North Circular and then the Westway in the 30s. So that's why this walk and talk is not just the places we're going through, it's about the routes that cut through, go around the whole area as well.
Because as it became industrial, the roads were of priority importance to deliver stuff here and then take it out. But also the transport meant that it brought the downfall of the industrial era for this region, because then with the increased production and scale of it, the roads were not sufficient and it wasn't possible to bring these huge lorries, etc. So that's why the big companies moved out of London.
Yeah.
The original road here.
Yes.
They built that in the 80s and got through to so perhaps the new road may have been the 80s rather than the 90s. So it was all redeveloped around here. This was sort of big chunks of capital in this part of Park Royal. You know, the big factories. So there was Heinz baked beans were all made here, but they've moved up to Wigan now. And Radio Times.
Yeah, we will look at Radio Times.
We'll stop there.
Go in and Percy, yeah?
Yes.
No.
Whereas if you go further over in Park Royal, they're much smaller factories, and they were churning them out one a week. In the 20s.
That's when they bought the land and they then divided it into pieces to make these factories. But that's also a very interesting business park, Park Royal Business Park. Yeah,
it's Segro own a lot of this land.
Yes,
Segro stands for Slough Estates, and then the Grow on the end. Who are the 1930s huge estate like this in Slough. And I think that was even bigger than Park Royal, or is still there.
Beware of bicycles, talking of one. So we finally reached the canal, the Grand Union Canal, built in 1801 and leading all the way into central London, all the way from Birmingham. And that was it called Paddington Branch once? So Abbey Road leads further on, and this is on the left further on where the Greyhound Stadium was in the past. Very, very popular and very much place to be. And then the next one was this where the roadmaster bodies were Park Royal vehicles for many, many years. So parts for the buses.
Down into the Welsh Harp, which is a man-made lake to store water for the canal. So that was the function of the Welsh Harp. I used to go sailing on there as a kid, and it was always full. Now it's been kept low, so that it can act as a flood protection device. So whether you get a response to a rainstorm event. And as he said Mark said back in the Ace Café, the water level is controlled, and they will. Well, you heard his story that they know when it's the tide at Brentford, and they can let out more water, etc., etc.
Peaky Blinders used to come along here.
Yeah.
Above Crystal House, can you see?
Yes.
What is it?
Coffee.
Sorry?
Guinness Harp.
Yes, Guinness Harp. It's the only thing that is left that you can see of the fact that the brewery was here. This, yes, and St James Place underneath. Yeah.
See where it says Crystal now?
Yeah.
I noticed in the Ace Café that he had a harp with a beer pump on it at the back of the cars.
Very few people in the area. There was a small church attached to the manor, so this is the oldest part of the area, really.
And like I said, the original manor was moated, and the abbey, Twyford Abbey, was never an abbey. It's only when the Alexian brothers ran the care home, nursing home here, and then it was the relic. And now somebody bought it. It's been taken care of, but I think that the works are not going on at the moment.
Guinness Brewery was industrial architecture by Gilbert Scott, complemented a sports ground on the other side of the field. So you had very open spaces, etc., around the area with people living locally. You passed an area called Moyne Place, which was, they were the Guinness houses that were built by Guinness for the workers, and you used to be able to get up in the morning, leave your house and walk up the street and in through a gate into the works. When I moved here the Guinness site, the brewery was there, the sports facility, the sports field. There was 12 acres of sports field where these houses are. That was all gone. That's all gone. And there were cows in the field in late 1980s. And what used to happen was the grass in Twyford Abbey and the grass in the Guinness grounds, the cows used to share it week after week. They used to take the cows across the road, and daily they had to take them back to the Guinness site for the dairy to milk them and take them back again. That was just before my time, but the cows were there when I arrived. You could walk to Hanger Lane tube station, say good morning to the cows on their way to work, etc. Well, it's all changed now. It's just everything. Was this hill here before? No. This is the waste from this is the rubble from the excavation, and it's such that, you know, no kid can kick a ball in the area apart from in that little square there. You know, and there's a dog park over there. It's quite nice. It's well maintained and it's well stocked.
The kind of tavern by the entrance was called the Plumes, because in his coat of arms there are these plumes, this feather, so that's why. And that was also a popular place, I think, in the 50s, 60s, where people went, to hang out.
What used to happen was the Plumes pub was right opposite the dog track.
Yes.
So they used to go into the Plumes first, and then go into the dog track, have the evening in the dog track, and then go into the Plumes afterwards as well.
So yes, so when people went to the Greyhound Stadium, to the races, afterwards they crossed the street and they would find themselves at
Plumes pub is still there, but
Plumes.
it's a restaurant.
Yes, and that was changed. So for a long time, the hotel, the Plumes, was closed down and getting derelict. It had this kind of frontage of some kind of mock Tudor.
Yeah.
And then it got into the hands of Pachi, and Pachi are the biggest manufacturer of Middle Eastern sweets, the baklava stuff. I'm holding because the owner gave me this, and this is about Ealing Art Trail. That's an annual event, very interesting. Lots of artist studios open. I think this time they're doing over 2 weeks, all over Ealing, and this is such a fantastic brochure. It has lists of artists, but it also is divided into areas, and then on the maps you've got different artists and opening, etc. It was really worth coming.